Okay, so for those of you who remember about 6 weeks ago, maybe 7, 8, the line that I used to futilely argue against Drake Maye starting behind this offensive line was just, can we do better? Can the Patriots do better than the worst pass protection in the NFL? First of all, the answer was no. Second of all, the answer was, Callahan, you're crazy. This kid's even better than you think. And thank God for Drake Maye, because I don't know what else we would be talking about this season. But when I think about what the Patriots are doing and what they've done, specifically Sunday, 34-15 in Miami, another just complete meltdown against the Dolphins in South Florida. Like, just this should just be angry quit and sim to the end of all these Patriots games when they play down there. Is, can they do better than 13 penalties? Can they do better than a 31-0 deficit? Can they do better than being a bottom 5 team on offense and on defense by DVOA? And that was before kickoff, because there are 5 games left. And I get that they're rebuilding. We've talked about this for months and months and months and months and months and months and months. And I get that the roster stinks. And I get that the coaching is new. And you get a rookie, a quarterback, and a head coach, and defensive coordinator. And really, if we're being honest, offensive coordinator. But can we do better than what we saw on Sunday? Because for all the progress they had shown and the near misses against the Titans and the Rams and the wins that we've had in between here and there to kind of uplift them, right? Chicago was great. The Jets was good. Cincinnati, oh my God, how long ago does that feel? This was a bigger step in any direction than any one of those, because this is the game the Patriots should have been competitive in. And it took all of, 20 minutes to realize, oh, this is over. Like, this isn't even close. This isn't just talent. This isn't even just coaching. It's organization of just your defense and then your offense knowing when to move backwards at the snap or when not to, because they couldn't get that down. 6 pre-snap penalties in the first half. Now, you've probably heard a lot of bitching along those lines since that game ended. And if you finish watching, God bless. What we're going to do here today is what we do every single Monday night, and it's break down the game, whether it was 13 penalties or not. Also going to have, for you, we need to talk and play through the game balls. They lost, Patriots win. We give game balls. We don't. We sit them down like we're about to break up with them and say, hey, get your shit together. Then what would NFL Film say? Mailbag and travel tales. But the reason I start asking, can they just do better, is for the same reason I wrote my column after the game going, okay, what matters here? What's the takeaway here, right? Like, I'm just, to be completely honest, tired of doing the Patriots got out coach column. You could have very easily done one of those down in Miami. It was waiting there. Just grab me, write me. Here's the pen. Here's the paper. There it is. Didn't want to do that anymore. What's important now are the next 5 games, because as Gerard Mayo said today on a conference call with reporters, I wasn't on his fly, we're all being evaluated. And it's hard to think, if the Patriots continue to lay eggs like they did in Miami and finish 3-14 with games like that when Gerard Mayo says we're all being evaluated, that doesn't include him. Because who else would you blame for a lack of discipline, being top 10 in penalties, and has had bottom 5 in offense and defense, but the head coach? Because no one's blaming the rookie quarterback, even though he had a game, and we'll get to him in a second. But they need to show progress. These next 5 games, they don't need to win a certain amount of games. It needs to be better in every single one of those games than what we saw in Miami, because this should be rock bottom. I don't know if it is, but man, it felt like that. And not because it was 34-15, but because it was 31-0 early in the fourth quarter. All right, before we get to all that, let's pay some bills. Prize Picks. I've been telling you, even if the Patriots lose, you can win, because with over 10 million members and billions, that's a B on this one, of dollars in awarded winnings this season, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all, even those of us who don't play fantasy really much anymore. Because here's the deal with Prize Picks. You just pick more or you pick less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. If you think, for example, Drake Maye is going to throw for over 200 yards against the Colts on Sunday, great, pick more. If you think he will throw for less than 1.5 touchdowns, maybe it's a running game, maybe it's a low-scoring game, then you pick less, and that's it. And you can make your picks in 60 seconds or less and turn those takes into real money all season long. And you can even do it on Thanksgiving. A special at Prize Picks coming to you just like this. Tyreek Hill, more than half. That's it. Half. 1/2 receiving yards. Okay? You just need to put more than Tyreek Hill, more than half a receiving yard, which he's going to do, and you win. Which means then you only have to make one other correct pick, and boom. 2-player lineup, more or less, you pick, you win. That's it. Real cash. So sign up today and get $50 instantly as a bonus when you play $5. You don't even need to win your lineup to receive that $50 bonus, you just got to play $5. That's it. The $50 bonus is guaranteed. Download the app today. Use code CLNS for that $50 bonus instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. The code is CLNS for $50 bonus guaranteed instantly after you play your first $5 lineup, Prize Picks, or in your game. Okay, I mentioned Drake Maye. We're going to start here. Not his best game. Not certainly a game anyone is going to crush him for, especially when he gets them on the board, throwing a 38-yard touchdown pass on an extended play on 4th and 15 and gets absolutely demolished. I think this is the part that people have been missing about this play. Yeah, it's cool he scrambled to his right. Yeah, it's awesome. He threw across his body standing at the 50-yard line, found Austin Hooper and a sea of nothingness because no one was around him. He got killed at the end of that and knew he was going to on 4th and 15 and still converted, still scored, had tipped to Drake Maye. Overall, though, 22 of 37, 222 yards, touchdown, a pick. His adjusted completion percentage, so this is courtesy of PFF, basically just says how accurate were you, right? Okay, in Maye's case, it was 64.7%. Forget the spikes, forget the throwaways. He was accurate 64.7% of the time. Under pressure, 4 of 10, 66 yards, touchdown, a pick, 4 sacks. Believe me, we're going to get to the offensive line. Against the blitz, didn't see a ton of this. 2 of 5 for 19 yards, a sack, and 4 rushing yards in a scramble. He scrambled 2 other times, not against the blitz. The number that I want to bring up, though, and I'm going to hit it, and then we're going to go backwards, and you'll see why in a second, is 1 completion longer than 20 yards downfield. It was that exact play. Okay? Rolling right, extended play. Austin Hooper, please catch this. I'm throwing this with my entire body. That was 1 of 2 deep completions Drake Maye has had in the last 5 weeks. That's why I'm not concerned. I'm not worried. I'm not like looking over my shoulder, but it's something I want to keep an eye on. And we've talked about this before. This is the part where we now go backwards. Is however you felt about Drake Maye's game, it was great. It was bad. It was somewhere in between. It's just a matter of fact that it is difficult to evaluate any player, any quarterback under circumstances like those. Let's review. Okay. His teammates put him behind the chains again with 7 offensive penalties in the first half. Okay. 5 were pre-snap. They had 6 completions in the first half. Again, that's 6 completions to 7 first half penalties. A couple were declined. Lucky for them. Okay. You cannot play offense like that, especially considering the margin of error that the Patriots did. Drake Maye had to. He got them 80 yards on that second drive that leads to a field goal attempt. Joey Sly misses, whatever. Then they go 3 and out through the end of the half, kneel it down, and that's it. As that's all going on, he's feeling pressure on more than a third of his dropbacks. Okay. And then by the time you get to the second half, you get a chance to breathe and go, what are we going to do? The scoreboard says 24-0. So what your plan is to basically throw against a defense that knows you're not going to run. You're not going to run play action. If you do, we don't care because we know it's a fake. We know it's play action. And so, yes, he was less accurate than the previous 2 starts. And he had an on-target pass fewer than 65% of the time and 2 bad turnovers, which the guy leads the league in turnover-worthy play percentage. So whether the picks are caught or the fumbles are recovered or not, he's having more of those plays than anybody else. The concern for me is not that number, and it's not just because he's a rookie. It's because some of those are just, I don't think he's going to replicate many of those picks that we saw in Chicago where he claims he was trying to throw it away. I have my doubts. But either way, that's you touching the stove and go, oh, that's hot. I won't touch it again. That's not going to happen again. Plays like that in Chicago. What could happen, though, to go back to the concern here, is Drake Maye playing hero ball. Because we talked a lot about his footwork as a prospect when he gets drafted, talking about a training camp. All of that, frankly, was a lot of hot air and a lot of wasted breath. What was not, though, was the discipline he showed at times in the preseason, early on this year, and really the last 3-4 starts when the Patriots needed more from him, but he continued to take, instead of not just, let me run as far as possible, let me throw this as far as possible, let me fit it in that tight window, even though this is likely to be a pick, or at the very least is a tiny low percentage throw. He took a profit. Okay. You started to see less and less of that in Miami, and especially as the game went on, which granted, Patriots didn't need to flip a profit very small. They needed lottery tickets to hit as soon as possible. Okay. If you needed to make money gambling all in one day, let's say $10,000, you are not just doing the plus 100 bets all the way to the money that you need. No, you're probably filing some ridiculous parlays, or you're playing Prize Picks. Ideally, you're playing Prize Picks. But the point is, I don't want to see games like Sunday where the Patriots fall behind, where the Patriots can't protect him, where the Patriots are taking penalties. And Maye says, okay, here we go again. This is college all over again. I need to be the hero because that's how he gets dragged back into bad habits. And I'm not saying it's happening yet, but I'm saying we've had a couple of games now where you and I both watch and go, he's the best player in the field. And if we can see that, me in the press box, and you on your couch at home, or wherever the hell you're watching these games, or at the end, hopefully not, he absolutely feels that and feels emboldened to try bolder things, which again, the game script might warrant, but over time, he's building habits. And those habits are either going to make or break him as an NFL quarterback. And that's what the Patriots are trying to do now with their quarterback, with their culture, with all of their young players. These games are important as much for the winning now as it is to build for the future. If what he's learning now in efforts to win are unhealthy habits, risking the deeper throws, not taking the profits in front of him, okay, then that's a problem. Because the best quarterbacks are not just the ones that can make the big, crazy highlight plays. The 38-yard touchdown across the body from the 50-yard line all the way to Austin Hooper, right? It's the ones that can make the precise throws that Tua was making all day long. So just keep an eye on that. I don't want Drake Maye leading the NFL in turnover-worthy plays for much longer. I do not want Drake Maye looking like the last quarterback we saw in bad spurts in North Carolina. I want the Drake Maye we saw for the 6 starts before this one and go, yeah, the kid's got it. He's all right. Number 2, going back to the number about, concerns about what this game was. One completion, one deep completion, the Hooper touchdown. We've mentioned it like 10 times already. That's one of 2 deep completions he has in his last 5 starts. When you look at his first 2 starts, okay, so first 2 starts, 84 dropbacks. He had 4 deep completions in those 2 starts and 84 dropbacks. He's had 184 since then and half as many deep completions. What does this say? Number 1, it's defenses are adjusting. And it's not just that they're playing more zone against him, which is something Mike McDaniel, the Dolphins head coach, hit on after the game, saying, hey, it really helps when you're a quarterback and you can run around because you can punish defenses playing man coverage or 2-man, which is just 2 deep safeties, man underneath, okay? Because that's where they're vulnerable, right? Everyone else is worried about their receiver, their man, whomever they're covering. No one's watching the quarterback. He takes off. So defenses are playing more zone coverage against the Patriots to prevent Drake Maye from scrambling because all eyes are on him. I'm in zone. I'm where I need to be. Where's the quarterback? In case he throws it to me, I'll be ready. If he doesn't, I can at least drift in that direction. Number 2, they're playing more zone to protect against these deep passes. And what this does, in the way that you saw the Dolphins sit back and play a ton of zone, I think it was over 75% on Sunday, which is also sometimes just how they want to play defense, is when you short circuit Drake Maye's ability to throw deep and you short circuit his ability to scramble, that's not only short circuiting all the ways he has to generate explosive plays, it's stopping every avenue for the Patriots to have any explosive plays. This is not an explosive run game, okay? This is 3, 4, 5, if we're lucky, yards in a cloud of dust run game. This is not an explosive receiving core, yards after catch offense like you saw in Miami. This is we need the kid to come through. And when they're playing more defense, they're playing more zone, they're playing more 2 deep zone and still stopping the run, there's really not much more he can do except to extend plays and take the risks that sometimes pay off in a big touchdown in the 4th quarter that makes all of us go, wow. And in other instances, leads to his strip sack, where he's got 5 fumbles down. That's more than anyone else on the team and more than most people in football. And throwing that lollipop interception, which was a great play by that Dolphins defensive lineman whose name is completely escaping me right now. But you watch and go, oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, and that's why you can't make that throw. Because it lost the game. And the game was probably lost. But you can't have any more of those plays, and we've seen plenty of them in the 4th quarter from Drake Maye. So not totally worried, getting a little bit closer. Patriots need to do better around him, and he won't feel the compulsion to do this over and over again in the 4th quarter and bail him out. All right, enough about Drake. Critical areas. If you read my film reviews, please do at the Boston Herald. We would love for you to read our content at the Boston Herald. I break down 5 critical areas that pretty much determine every single football game. They're as follows. Turnovers. Patriots lost this 2-1. Explosive play rate. Patriots 8.2%, Dolphins 7.5%. And people have, differing definitions of explosive plays. Is it just every play beyond 15 yards? Is it passes that are 20 yards or more, runs that are 12? That second definition is mine. So the Patriots are close there. They were behind in success rate, 36%. Dolphins are 46%. How often are you just staying on schedule ahead of the chains? Red zone efficiency, Patriots didn't get to the red zone once. Okay. That's a problem. The Dolphins, meanwhile, 3 of 4. Pressure rate, this is the last one of the 5 critical areas. Patriots, 14.2%. Dolphins, 34.7. Okay. So not overwhelming. Not the worst that Drake May has seen, but bad enough and almost triple what the Patriots were providing. Those were the differences. How are you affecting the other quarterback? How often are you getting inside the 20? And what are you doing? That's how you get to 34 and 15. But staying with the offense. So Alex Van Pelt comes out with this script on the first 2 drives. And I'm going, oh, Alex is reaching deep into his bag of trips here. Patriots' first 13 plays, which again, second drive is 10 plays, 80 yards, no points because Joey Slye missed a field goal. In these 13 plays, Alex Van Pelt had 5 different personnel groupings. And I'm not just talking, they subbed out a receiver. That's a different personnel grouping. I'm talking about 11 personnel with 3 receivers. I'm talking about 21 personnel with 2 backs and 1 tight end. 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends. You got 13 personnel in there for a second, 1 back, 3 tight ends, and then an unbalanced set with 6 offensive linemen. Alex Van Pelt was going, I want to see what you, Miami, do with all this different stuff. And he kind of got an answer and he kind of didn't, because in the process of those 13 plays, his players are going, you know what would be fun? Let's take 4 penalties real quick. Let's go backwards. Let's do the I could do this the hard way challenge. So the Patriots threw the kitchen sink at Miami. They dodged it, and the Patriots had nothing else left. And so Van Pelt wanted to play this game with multiple tight ends and multiple backs, which again was 10 of their first 13 plays, all those different groupings. Most of them had multiple tight ends and multiple backs, but it didn't matter because after that, they go 3 now. And after that, Drake May is getting sacked and strip sacked because Vederian Lowe and Demontre Jacobs, for the 3rd week in a row, maybe 4th, I have to double check, are each giving up at least 3 pressures. And in Lowe's case, taking 4 penalties, which again, I promise, we're getting to the offensive line. And because they fall behind, Van Pelt has to lean into more 3 receiver sets. Now, granted, he eventually goes, as we've talked about before, in critical situations, this is how the man wants to play offense. You look at that 4th and 15 snap. Patriots were not in 11 personnel with 3 receivers. They were in 12 with 2 tight ends. Lo and behold, one catches that pass from Drake May for a touchdown, as we've documented now 11 billion times. But the point is, because they were behind, because they needed to throw, Van Pelt goes to more 11 personnel. And in that situation, the receivers cannot separate and didn't, and their offensive line cannot pass protect. And you start to see Van Pelt try to work around one of those problems, being the pass protection. You saw it on the 3rd and 16 run in the first half at the end of that second drive. You saw it again on that gross double pass from Kendrick Bourne to the feet of Ramondre Stevenson, actually the grass in front of the feet of Ramondre Stevenson. Okay, in the second, when they're facing 3rd and 17. And granted, okay, the odds of converting 3rd and 17 are 6, 9, nice, 13%. I don't know. They're not great. Some people were insanely upset, as they tend to be on social media, about that pass. I didn't mind it. But what that play call said is less about Kendrick Bourne throwing or we think we can trick you. It's that we know for a fact, being the Patriots, we cannot pass protect for our quarterback on 3rd and long. And they couldn't. And this is a day where Miami didn't even really blitz. They blitzed Drake May 14% of the time. The problem was they got home on more than half of them, where final critiques of the kind of Alex Van Pelt game plan that wasn't, because again, he just had to pivot. They were in 11 personnel. Their least efficient personnel grouping, let's see what it was, 69% of the time. Their success rate in that group, 26. Not good. By comparison, 30% of their snaps were in 12 personnel. 2 tight ends, how they want to play, how they best play. Their success rate in those snaps, 61. But the critiques, look, the Miami defensive play caller, Anthony Weaver, as some play callers had earlier in the season, seemed to have a beat on. We know when the Patriots are going to slide their line in one particular direction. And in this direction, most often, it was towards the boundary or towards the left. Because it left Demontre Jacobs all alone. 4 offensive linemen go to the left. He's the one on the right, blocking one-on-one. And what that allowed them to do, Miami, is to send blitzers through the B gap, who got through 3 times on Drake May. So I don't know if this was luck. I don't know if this was good advanced scouting. I don't know what it was. But if you're Alex Van Pelt, you need better answers, because that's just not your players failing you. That's you calling a protection that invited pressure that Miami seized on and obviously led to a sack and more pressure and even a pick in the very end. Last thing I'll say is this, as far as Van Pelt goes, Look, it sucked being a play caller in 2nd and 13, 3rd and 16, 3rd and 17, whatever. The isolation of these routes downfield where it's Kayshon Boutte just has to win. Kendrick Bourne, you got to win on this route facing Jalen Ramsey. Good luck. It's not good enough. You watch Miami, and it's not just the shifts. It's not just the motions. It's not just the fakes. It's all of it, making life a lot easier on Tua, Jonnu Smith even, and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, who could win on their own. They don't have to because of those shifts and motions. And it's not a guarantee of points. Last time they played, I told you, everyone's getting on Van Pelt about lack of motion, 31st in motion on the snap of the whole league. Well, you know who's number one? Miami, who at that point was the only team below the Patriots, 32, where it matters most, and that was scoring. So motion, more of a media thing than football mattering, but coaches have to help the Patriots receivers out more because the Patriots receivers are doing themselves no favors, and neither of the offensive line, but they need help schematically, and they didn't get it. Broken tackles. Let's get to some player stats, and we'll get to defense. Demario Douglas forced 4 missed tackles. Okay. He had their explosive plays outside of that Hooper touchdown in the second half. Lo and behold, when you throw at your best receiver and only yards after catch threat, the man does stuff with the football. Drake Maye right behind him with 3 missed tackles forced. Ramondre Stevenson had 1. All of 1. The rest were Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Polk, to Michael Hasty. Stevenson, I'm going to hit on here for a second because we said this last week, and it's like a step above the concern or whatever I tried to articulate about Drake Maye and watch this for now, and I'm not worried, but I got my eye on it. Like the kid in the corner of the playground who's like not got a wood chip in his mouth, but he's holding at it, looking at it, being like, do I really want to chew on this? Reminder Stevenson over the last 4 games, man's averaging just 2 forced missed tackles per game. And it's not just the make or miss ability, which we know was entirely sustaining this rushing attack as it did a year ago because the offensive line stinks. It's his details are just, it's not good. That same second drive, Patriots go 80 yards right before the 3rd and 16 handoff. He's running a little hitch route, 2nd and 15 on the outside. He's got plenty of space. You call this a free access throw. The defender is so far off, you just get 5 yards. That's a free access, free yards. So Maye gets to his drop, his back foot hits. He cocks his arm to throw. And Ramondre Stevenson is doing this like shake and bake at the top of the route. What are you doing? Just stop. This is a little hitch route. That's what you're there for. You're not doing anything crazy. And he then breaks inside, and lo and behold, the throw goes behind Ramondre Stevenson. So when you look at these instances where receiver and quarterback are not on the same page, yeah, sometimes it's on the quarterback. It's a bad throw. Drake had a couple of bunnies. He just missed. Demario Douglas later in the game, 3rd down, big blitz, throws behind him. That was on Drake. Said so himself. Wasn't a miscommunication, which is really code for not my fault. This was Ramondre Stevenson's fault. Okay, he trips on a screen. He's a non-factor for the rest of the game. When you are one of the 12 highest, I think it's actually 10, highest paid running backs in the entire league, you need to be more of a factor than a guy who makes 2 tacklers miss per game, and that's it. And especially when you're a non-factor as a pass catcher, because just behind Demario Douglas, you're probably the most dangerous guy in space for this team. All right, here it is. Offensive line. Montre Jacobs, 4 pressures allowed, sack, 2 QB hits in a hurry. Michael Jordan, left guard, sneakily just as bad. Sack, QB hit, 2 hurries. Bedard Low, sack, 2 hurries, 4 penalties as well. Drake Maye invited 2 hurries by my charting. Ben Brown, the center, got tossed around like a rag doll a couple of times, but only give up 1 run stuff. A couple of other bad reps, which left Mike Conway all by his lonesome as the only offensive lineman with a clean sheet. So there's your offensive line talk. And we've talked about the penalties 7 times in the first half, and 5 were pre-snap, 13 total for the team. Can't have it. Gerard Mayo, though, sticking with the offensive line, said he's open to lineup changes. And Ivan Jacobs, who got benched in the 4th quarter for City So, or Fine Bedard Low, of course you're on alert, right? Because these 2 guys, not just on Sunday, but against the Rams, even the Bears before that, are the problems up front. And it's not just the Patriots are making it work because it's easier sometimes to help a guard than a tackle. They're just getting beat, and they're not starting caliber offensive tackles. The issue is, well, who do the Patriots bench them for? Because City So, people forget, started at left guard basically every snap at training camp, gets injured, then comes back, stinks because maybe he's not fully healthy or he's rusty or whatever, hasn't been seen from since. Oh, and now you want to play him at tackle, but the Patriots tried him as a rookie, and he wasn't very good because he hadn't done it in 5 years. So I don't know what the plan is up front, but I know it's probably going to involve a change at offensive tackle, and it probably should. We talked about Stevenson. Antonio Gibson, good game for him. Patriots are bringing the fight to Miami's defense early on, and he was a big part of that 14-yard run. Then he had a 14-yard check down catch from Drake Maye on third down. Really nice progression read from Drake Maye. Good yards after the catch from Antonio Gibson. Here's the problem. Those two plays, 14 yards, their longest plays of the first half. That was it. Not as big of a problem, though, as Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. And look, if they were not playing for a rebuilding team in year one, it would be very difficult to argue why either of these guys should play meaningful snaps in any of the Patriots' last 5 games, barring some catastrophe health-wise at this position. Because Polk's only catch Sunday was a design touch on a screen pass where he came 1 yard short of moving the sticks, and the Patriots punted their opening drive. His other target got batted away because he couldn't separate, and he is among the worst separators in the entire NFL, according to Next Gen Stats and Pro Football Focus, not just me, Patriots writer with the podcast. Javon Baker, meanwhile, played 11 snaps, and you probably remember 2 of them. 1, because he started somehow. Number 2, because he had 1 target in the left sideline. I tweeted this clip out. And I don't know this for a fact, but it aligns, in my mind, with a quote that AVP gave reporters last month. Hey, why isn't Javon Baker playing anymore? Well, he needs to line up correctly, and he needs to run the right routes and earn trust from the coaching staff. Oh, is that all? Because when you look at that play where he runs a deep comeback on the left sidelines in the second half, and Drake Maye throws the ball 5 yards behind him, it looks like a very basic 4 verticals concept where you got 2 receivers on either side. The slot receivers run these benders up the seam, start out a little bit with an outside release and then kind of bend back in towards the middle. And the outside receivers can just go vertical route straight downfield. Or if they're not getting enough separation, it depends on the coaching point here. This is why I say I don't know. When I tell you stuff on the podcast, it's researched, it's proved. I know what I'm talking about. In this case, I don't know what the point was, but either if you can't get separation, some coaches say you snap it off at 15 yards. Others say it depends on the safety structure, 1 high or 2 high. In either case, on the right side, opposite Javon Baker, Kendrick Bourne snaps his off at 12 yards. And at the same point, Drake Maye is unwinding to throw at Javon Baker, who's also at 12 yards. But he's not stopping. He's going all the way upfield to 17, 18 yards, which was at the sticks. Generally a good idea. But this is second down. You didn't need it all in one play. Then he turns around. And by the time Javon Baker did turn around, he saw the ball bouncing where he probably should have been, which to me said, because he played 11 snaps, still doesn't have a catch, despite playing 7 games, that he's still not getting those details. He's not running the right routes. He's not lining up correctly. Well, maybe Sunday he did, but he didn't play much more after that. And so to me, we all had high hopes. But the evidence is what it is. The tape is what it is. The stats are what they are. It's not good. Kayshon Boutte, by the way, those deep targets have gone from a fun new feature of the offense to an annoying bug. He's not separating. That needs to be a pinpoint perfect throw. That shouldn't be the case for a guy who doesn't have blazing speed and is decent in contested catch. He still does good work on slants, in breaking routes. I think that's where he has to live, which says, okay, who's your deep threat? Well, hopefully the guy who can line up and run the right routes, which right now isn't Javon Baker, but honestly, those vertical routes is what he majored in college at Central Florida and was really good at. But maybe give Pop Douglas a shot. I don't know. All right, that's enough offense. We got to get to the defense, which was just as bad as we all know. But first, I'm going to tell you in a little bit about, as part of Travel Tales, the last segment of the podcast. If you want to skip it, no problem. About the University of Miami football game I took my cousin to. He's a senior down there. We got great tickets. And I know they were great tickets because they were the lowest price anywhere on the ticket marketplace. When I go to games, whether it's in Miami or the Celtics or the Bruins or the Sox in the summer, please get Juan Soto, by the way. I go to Game Time because they always have the lowest price guarantee. And I can see my seat. So whether you want to see your seat or get the lowest price, or you want to know what the all-in pricing is up front, all the fees, all everything, go to Game Time right now and use Game Time Picks. It filters out all the fluff, only gives you incredible deals on great seats. This goes for games, concerts, shows, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. And if you, for whatever reason, feel compelled to look around at other tickets at other places, well, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a lower price elsewhere. But the thing is, you won't, because that's what makes Game Time Game Time. So with the Celtics rolling now, Porzingis, welcome back. Bruins, I don't know, treading water, and the Patriots, still a couple of home games. Go to Game Time for the lowest price guarantee, your seat view, and this. If you download the Game Time app today, create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Code CLNS. You get that $20 off your first purchase. That's it. That's the whole punchline. So download the Game Time app today, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase for any game, show, whatever you want to go to. Turn it to a buy. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Defense. Whew. So last week, I'm gonna say killed is strong. This is football. This is a podcast. This is me talking alone in my office late on Monday night. I was critical of DeMarcus Covington for an inability or a refusal to adjust. Hey, Christian Gonzalez, we're going to park you in the boundary. Sean McVay is going to kill us on the other side. But you know what? Do your thing where we told you to, because this is working out just fine. DeMarcus Covington, I think, actually, crazy as it is, had a decent plan for Miami. And I'll tell you what that is in a second. The problem was the coaching that led to the plan wasn't good enough because there were basic breakdowns galore. Now, let's talk about the plan first. Patriots basically lived out of 3 safety nickel personnel, which, talking with Chad Johnson last week, he loved this idea. Smart man. The Patriots did, because in that personnel grouping is a team who's struggled to stop the run. You get an extra safety or 2 in the box where there's enough speed to play zone, cover those tight ends and running backs, and trust your receivers on the outside to do what they need to do. And that combination of speed and beef, as opposed to 3-4 base personnel, which they played on 1.5% of their snaps. I think it was just 1 snap of base defense. The week before, by the way, 43%. So this is a big leap. You have enough speed for Miami. If they do throw another downs, they've got enough guys in the box, heavy hitters to stop the run. This is where they lived. 62% of the time, the Patriots were in this personnel package, 3 safety, nickel personnel. Within that, it was close to a 50-50 split between man and zone. They blitzed 16% of the time. This was really not about third down or matchups. It was just geography. Anytime the Dolphins got close to the red zone, anytime they were just inside the red zone, that's when DeMarcus Covington started to bring some heat. Because at that point, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are not going to kill you with your long speed. And that's the fear of the blitz, right? We saw with Cooper Kupp. If we don't get home and the quarterback throws over the top and he's singled up with Jonathan Jones or Marcus Jones or someone who's not Christian Gonzalez, that dude can take it to the house, as Cooper Kupp did, for 61 or 69 yards or whatever it was. So Patriots didn't blitz a whole lot. When they did, it was around the red zone. Miami had a 57% success rate, though, when they blitzed. It's probably lower than you would have thought, and averaged just 4.3 yards per play. And overall, Patriots didn't spin the dial, as Gerard Mayo suggested they would before the game, speaking on the radio to Scott Zolak. But they lived primarily out of cover 1, man-to-man, single high safety. Cover 2, 2 deep safety, zone defense. And cover 3, which is another single high safety structure, and the corners typically, but not always, are running and covering deep down the sidelines with that 1 deep safety in the middle. Other versions of cover 3, we're going to keep this simple so we can keep it moving. Patriots did this from their 3 safety nickel package because it got numbers in the box and gave you enough people in the middle of the field where Miami loves to throw in breaking routes, off of play action, on yards after catch concepts, sometimes on screens, just to get their guys moving. Waddle, Hill, we saw Devon Achane, right? Jonnu Smith, even Odell Beckham still running around somehow. And so I like that they mixed their cover. It was pretty even between 1, 2, and 3, plus a little zone blitz stuff, which actually worked. It was the only thing that worked. The problem was Miami didn't care. They killed everything. Multiple first down conversions against cover 1, 2, and 3. At least 3 completions of 10 yards or more against cover 1, cover 2, and cover 3. And at least, though, in the red zone, the Patriots used some double teams. How about this? And in one instance, actually a few instances, they double teamed both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Smart. Christian Gonzalez and Odell Beckham will double the other 2 guys. Where's Tua going to go with the ball? Well, Miami, being the team that's tortured the Patriots since, Tom Brady left, or his last game in the regular season in Gillette in 2019 with Brian Flores, said, we know you're going to double. This is kind of what you do, is make teams play left-handed, even though we don't, unfortunately. They haven't done that a whole lot this year. So Jonnu Smith gets that first touchdown. Kyle Duggar's eyes are in the wrong place. Tells me I thought he was chipping. He did chip a little bit, staying in protection. Kyle, you got to cover your man because everyone else was covered. The next 2 touchdowns go to Achane, who, again, whether this was a screen or a clear out or everyone on the right side of the field, this is his second touchdown, runs an in-breaking route, just a ton of traffic from the right side, all over the middle, and Achane from the backfield swings out to the right because that's vacated. Miami took advantage of these doubles and this plan. And honestly, I don't have a better option than to take away their best players because to me, these issues were player breakdowns. And I'll say this for Covington before we get to exactly what happened on the breakdowns. They were slow to adjust because Hill wasn't killing them. Jonnu Smith had a good game, wasn't really totally killing them. The player that killed them was Jalen Waddle. He had 118 receiving yards at halftime, but it was too little too late when Covington finally adjusted to double teaming him instead of Tyreek Hill and put Christian Gonzalez on Tyreek Hill. They also played less man-to-man, and it worked mostly because Waddle had less than 30 yards after halftime, but he also scored Miami's last touchdown. So player stats. Keon White, only man with multiple pressures. He had 2 hurries. Christian Barmore, sack. Brendan Schooler, sack. Yannick Ngakoue. This was borderline. I gave him a QB hit. Well, Gotcha had a hurry. 7 run stuffs. Impressive. A lot of pass breakups because they were getting picked on. Marcus Jones led the way with 3. Missed tackles. Sione Takitaki got hurt. Also had 2 missed tackles. Not great, but overall, nothing too bad there. So the basic breakdowns were this. Miami's use of motion and shifts before the snap and their use of tempo, especially early in the game, was designed to test the Patriots' ability, A, to line up in the right place, B, to communicate changes. If you're in zone coverage, someone goes in motion. Typically, that means you bump over. Everyone shifts over a little bit. It's not always. You got spinning safety sometimes. This is, again, blanket, simple stuff. Or in man, because we know they use that cheat motion, right? Tyreek Hill zips across the formation, ball gets snapped, and he's boom, goes straight upfield. You can't have the guy who's chasing him across be able to chase him upfield. He's already behind. Okay, so they'll switch man-to-man assignments sometimes in that case. Patriots have done this. They play Miami twice a year. They played them less than 2 months ago, and they played a very similar offense, probably the most similar offense to what the Dolphins run a week earlier. And yet still, they had bad eyes, meaning watching the ball, as Kyle Duggar did, instead of covering Jonnu Smith. They had instances where you had receivers that were just completely uncovered before the snap. And Jelani Tavai looking over like, oh, that's not right. Let me go over there, even though that's a receiver, and I'm a hulking 245-pound dude. Okay? And you had constant pointing and efforts to communicate, but just all of it broke down. And you don't need me to go into further detail. You watched it. Touchdown, 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 field goal. That was the first half. Okay. And Jonathan Jones, after the game, tells our guy, Doug Hyde, we're not locked in. It's a lack of focus. And that is a black mark on the coaches. It's a black mark on the players. Again, they all prepared for this offense, a divisional opponent 2 months ago, less than 2 months ago. And they saw something very similar a week ago against the Rams. And the Rams used the stuff Miami did. Miami did the same stuff with some of these motions to create little hitch routes against zone and just widen it out. We talked about this last week. I do want to hit on Duggar again, though, because we talked about Jonnu Smith touchdown. He was also involved in the bust that allowed Achane to go for that walk-in score on the right side. This one, he called it miscommunication with him and Christian Ellis, which to me says it might have been Ellis's fault. But with both guys traveling with one running back, where Miami, again, you talk about they're in the red zone. We know they're going to double Hill. They brought Tyreek Hill into the backfield, which creates all kinds of issues for their defensive roles because some of it's predicated, obviously, on the matchup, right? When they go 1, double, 10. That means cover 1, and we're going to double number 10, meaning Tyreek Hill. Well, the guys covering the running backs are like, well, what am I doing? Because now he's in the backfield. But you can't have Devon Achane just going free to the right side as he did. Duggar also had a delayed reaction to the swing screen for Achane on his first touchdown, Miami's second overall. And Jalen Hawkins is pointing, bumping, like, hey, there's motion. We got to move. Got to get over. Achane catches it. He really had a two-way go. He could have gone straight to the pylon and scored. Instead, Patriots over pursue. He cuts inside. Boom, touchdown. They're on the board 14-0. And later in the last touchdown, Kyle Duggar, play action throw. Jalen Waddle gets us up the seam. He's a deep half safety in cover 2, and he's just caught flat-footed. And I don't blame a lot of guys for not winning a foot race. They're tackling Jalen Waddle. But you add all that up. This was a disastrous game for Kyle Duggar. One of the worst, if not the worst, I've ever seen him play. Of course, not all blame lies with him. Marcus Jones got picked on like the kid. I don't know, the recess, playground, whatever. Like, he's earned it, though, in a way that you're like, everyone else is standing back being like, yeah, okay, this is fine. What he said was gross. Like, you get a couple more punches in. Gave up 4 catches. Now, that kid fought back, and Marcus Jones has been on the pod. Good guy. Had fought back and had 3 pass breakups in the second half. Hat tip to him, but there's a reason Miami went after him. Same reason Miami went after Jonathan Jones the week before. And it might be a reason that Jonathan Jones, for the second time in 3 weeks, played more safety than he did corner. Is this portending a full-time move down the road? I don't know. What I do know is Christian Gonzalez, even with a hip injury, when he was a game-time decision, allowed just 1 catch to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and added a pass breakup because for some reason Tua thought it was a good idea to throw to Odell Beckham Jr. Which on this pass breakup, by the way, you talk about, again, manipulating the Patriots defense scheme. Hey, we get in the red zone. They're going to double Hill. You watch that play when Christian Gonzalez gets the pass breakup, and there was one other one, Tua had an incompletion. They have Hill go in motion and then just kind of like take a hike to the back right corner of the pylon. He's really hardly running around. They just know by having him, that one guy, run off into the corner, he's going to drive 2 players with him, and that creates space in the middle. And that's where Tua went. It was incomplete, but that's more of their plan. Which, again, this isn't all about the secondary. Patriots did a good job up front with the run defense. And for the life of me, couldn't find on tape what Devon Gotcha was talking about with, we had these adjustments and it was personnel. The real adjustment, again, was double Jalen Waddle, play less man-to-man. That was it. Personnel was still a lot of nickel. And they played 3 defensive tackles before the second half. They did in the first half. One of them was Christian Barmore, who right now might be their only hope, speaking of the Patriots, for a renewed pass rush, because they posted a season-low 14% pressure rate. They had below 23% a week ago. These are not great offensive lines in Miami and for the Rams. A banged-up Rams offensive line, by the way. And they had 1 pressure, all of 1, and 27 dropbacks in the first half. At which point, I'm in the press box going to Doug, like, did they get 1? Well, they did, but only 1, and that was it. And Barmore did get the sack, and like anything this season, and I don't know, maybe for the rest of his career, you celebrate those because that guy had a huge health scare with the blood clots, and he's back, and they're slowly ramping him up. And honestly, I think he's got a really sweet deal now. You practice once and you go play. I know he wants to practice more. He talked about it after the game, but the point is, they need more pass rush. Like, this is a classic defensive, not borderline, but kind of vivid defensive coach cliche. You got to cut off the head of the snake. Right now with Miami, that's Tua. And they didn't get close to him. 14% pressure rate. Not good enough. Keon White, who actually flushed Tua up the middle of the pocket so Christian Barmore could get that sack. Only guy with multiple pressures. Jelani Tavai, solid, unspectacular. Patriots need more playmaking from them. Brendan Schooler, or just put him on the edge. I don't know. He had 1 sack again, playing 2 defensive snaps, just like in Chicago. Guy's a stud. A stud strong. But the speed, the violence, the pursuit, it's all there. I will say in the other snap, Patriots are playing cover 2. His job, hanging out in no man's land, was to jam Jalen Waddle and then play the flat. He did. But Jalen Waddle still got 14 yards on a catch because Marcus Jones was in deep half coverage. And anyway, that's just how it went Sunday. We need to talk. It's Vidarian Lowe. Okay, pivoting here from defense, we need to talk. 3 false starts, holding penalty, multiple pressures allowed. He had a shoulder injury. I tweeted about it before the game. Said, watch this, the inside shoulder. They're going to attack that. 2-man stunts opposite Michael Jordan. Not good. Michael Jordan, again, still allowing pressure and sacks and quarterback hits. Anytime the tackle across from him goes to the left, and then the end on that side loops around inside because Jordan is just occupied with the tackle. These TE stunts. They got to get it cleaned up. But we need to talk as reserve for Vidarian Lowe because this was gross. I mean, DeMontre Jacobs got benched. He played worse. What would NFL Film say? Nothing. This fictitious hour-long documentary celebrating the Patriots somehow at 3-9, and they'll bounce back. They'll play better. I think they're going to win 1 more game. Crazy as it sounds. But they mentioned Miami as a house of horrors. Can they turn it around? No. More scary sights. And it's the Jonnu Smith touchdown. It's Drake Maye getting sacked. It's the Achane touchdown. It's the big lead. Maybe I think they do cap on the Maye touchdown at the end. They didn't even show the Christian Gonzalez touchdown in the run back, which was really not even. Marte Mapo got a forced fumble. Marte Mapo actually played pretty well, but that was a botched handoff, is what it was. And Patriots got the exact guy you wouldn't want returning that. The fastest man on your defense wins a sprint to the end zone, and that's 34-15. But NFL Films is not going to spend much time on this. NFL Films also is not going to spend much time on my tweet after the game, which got a lot of attention, as did reports from Mark Daniels and Greg Bedard. And, I want to say 1 or 2 other folks that said, hey, this locker room was, you know what? Actually, I'm going to read you exactly what I wrote, because I spent just too much time trying to put this exactly the way that I wanted to put it, knowing that this might happen the way that it blows up. But this is what I experienced, what I saw, what I heard. Quote, that was one of the lighter Patriots locker rooms after a bad loss I can remember. Not a happy locker room, but more players smiling and joking than normal, to say it at least felt accepting of the blowout and their reality at 3-9. This was not players hooting and hollering. This did not feel like a winning locker room. Again, not a happy locker room. Accepting was the word I landed on. Unbothered, I think Greg said, who came up to me and said that in the press box after, because he felt the same. We never talked about it, but Mark Daniels wrote about it too. I want to stress two things. Number one, obviously, if you couldn't tell by looking at me, I've never played in the NFL. So I'm not here to say that guys can't grieve or get over a loss in a way, because I don't know what that feels like. Gronk got happy drunk after losing a Super Bowl to the Giants in 2012, technically, whatever. Number two, okay, I think the fact that the Patriots were down 24-0 at half and then almost immediately 31-0 in the third quarter allowed that process of, oh, holy shit, we just got our asses kicked, to sink in and to process that before it was officially over. It didn't mean they quit. We'll watch that. They didn't quit. But you understand where this movie's going, right? You know what the destination is on this ride. Okay, you can see it on the GPS. So I'm going to start to think about what it's going to feel like once we get there. I think they did that. They experienced it. So when they get in the locker room, Mayo breaks them down, and guys are upset. You can read the quotes. But offensive side of the locker room, as Mark wrote, receivers certainly stuck out to me. Some guys on defense stuck out to me. It's pretty smiley. It's different in my experience, which there's been a lot more losing since the days of Brady and Belichick, as we know. And it was 29-39 once Brady left, and it was still Bill. So the losing isn't new. I'm not here to crush any of them. It was curious to me. That's why I tweeted it. Said it was lighter, not a happy locker room. This isn't to back away from any of that. I wouldn't have tweeted it if I didn't mention it. But there's also a reason I didn't write a whole story about it, because the point to me after this game was the Patriots need to show progress, because no one is going to be laughing or joking if games like that continue to pile up, because guys will be out of a job at the end of the season, and maybe not just the players. Okay, it is time for your time to shine. Mailbag. A lot of responses. Appreciate everyone on Twitter. I did not get this out to Blue Sky. Do follow me on Blue Sky, though. We're having a blast. And I don't say that as like, Blue Sky. It's a fresh start. It reminds people of old Twitter. Fewer bots. I haven't seen one bot. It's really not like porn reels that just pop up as soon as you watch one video, and then it's just stuff you didn't ask for, or certainly not going to see in public. So follow me on Blue Sky. That's my pitch. Anyway, here are the questions that I got to from Twitter. A lot of good ones. Again, if you didn't get yours answered, follow me up next week. Oh, and speaking of following up, I've not reached out to Nick Roy and Kevin Wallace. They will be on the show. I'm going to reach out to them tomorrow. A lot going on. Flew in early from Lauderdale, been filmed in this sense. Anyway, Angry Drake Maye, who, I mean, you might as well hide in plain sight. If you're going to have a burner, if people are still having burners in 2024, first of all, don't. This is a pathetic habit. Don't do it. But if you were, put your name on it. No one would suspect. Angry Drake Maye. Is it realistic to think we'll actually be competitive next season? I'm sure he's talking about the Patriots, because he's Drake Maye. He plays for the Patriots. Look, I want everyone to take a second and think about how you would answer this question. And however you feel, if someone with a different answer than you shares that, and that different answer upsets you, that's a you problem. It's not that it's not that they're an idiot. Because if I say yes, and I'm about to, that I think they can be competitive next season, all that is, your anger is just you seeking to be angry. And I get there are reasons to be upset about this team. We said it off the top. Can they just do better than 13 penalties and 31-0 in the third quarter? Okay. But yes, I think they can actually be competitive next season. I wouldn't even tell you like, oh, cap space and top 5 pick. I'll give you names. T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, Davon Holland, Travarius Ward, Ronnie Stanley. Good players, deep linebacking core in free agency, which the Patriots need. Drake Greenlaw's on that list. You can sign several of those players if you offer enough money. Drake Maye is going to make a year 2 leap. Christian Gonzalez is going to make a year 2.5 leap, because he played 4 games last year, 3.5, 3 1/3. Okay. Those are premium players at premium positions. You need a pass rusher, you need a receiver, you need an offensive tackle. It's a lot. It's a long list, but the Patriots have the resources to do it. The players are out there. Even if there's not a big, shiny blue chip offensive tackle in the top 5, they're going to pick in the top 10. Okay. Yes, they can be competitive next season. Teams have done this before. Yes, it's realistic. If you disagree, take a breath. John, simple question. It's actually two, John, now that I read this more closely. What's the plan and have the Patriots actually hit rock bottom? Number one, Patriots' plan, which I've said all along, is not to pour every single effort into winning football games this season. It is to both win games and develop players at the same time. It's why Javon Baker sees 11 snaps on Sunday. It's why Jaheim Bell, believe it or not, saw 8. It's why Del Pettis is rotating and playing safety. And Del Pettis has been fine. But that's the plan. That's the Packer way. That's how teams rebuild. We are going to take our lumps and our growing pains now, and we're going to give snaps to kids who maybe not have earned it. Javon Baker certainly didn't earn that start against the Dolphins. He got it anyway. They need to find out who they can count on and who they can't, because if you don't play them, then you don't really know. So that's the plan. Have they hit rock bottom? No, they have not hit rock bottom. I was asking that question after the Dallas loss last year in week 4, 38-3. Saints had something in store, 34-0. Worst home loss Patriots history the very next week. And then we still had the Chargers shutout 6-0. We had the Giants loss where Chad Riley missed that field goal. We had a lot of bad football. There's less time left this season, but I'm not ruling anything out. Speaking of Dallas is asking, willing to cut Mayo as a first-year head coach, but why is DeMarcus Covington not getting any blame for the defense being a disaster? If any coaching change is to be made, it's Covington, in my opinion. Well, Dallas, I think you got a fair point. Couple problems with the Covington case, though. Number one, he and Gerard are close. They actually share an agent. Covington, like Gerard, is a first-year defense coordinator. He's young. And I was sold on things that I heard from people I trusted in and around the league, even those who were made aware of his interviews after they happened with the Cardinals and with the Chargers for their defensive coordinator jobs last year. But the numbers are what they are. They're bottom 5 versus the run in the past. They have been slow to adjust. And I can tell you how. This is not just like people complaining about coaching on the radio and not being able to tell you exactly how it happened. We've got the numbers. We've got the stats, the breakdowns, everything. It's not to pick on people on the radio calling in or hosting shows. It's just to say that DeMarcus Covington's credit that I've given him is sometimes using Christian Gonzalez in week 1 against Jamar Chase. It didn't tip off man or zone. Good stuff. But his best plans since then have just been to play a ton of man coverage. It doesn't take a lot of creativity. And the work on fundamentals, whether it's penalties or busted coverages, is not good enough to overcome that lack of creativity. So, yeah, he absolutely deserves blame. I think people are coming around to that. I think also there's something to be said for when it's this bad. A, blame belongs to everybody. But also B, it's hard to know where to start. And being a head coach, especially a defensive-minded head coach, the default is to go to him. But you're right. DeMarcus Covington absolutely deserves a ton of blame for what's gone wrong with this defense. Kenny, really good question. Long question, too. Quote, the Pats are 6th in total penalty flags against, 81. They're 8th in total pre-snap penalties against, 33. And they are 28th in turnover differential, -7. In my opinion, those stats have a correlation with good and bad coaching. Granted, players also share culpability. Doug Kide mentioned on the Pats Chats podcast, listen if you aren't, he's looking for quantifiable reasons as to why Mayo should be let go. So his question is, Kenny's question, are there data points that you can point to at the end of the season which either speak to how bad Mayo's first year has been or possibly how average/expected his performance has been compared to other first-year head coaches? So let's all take a breath. I would say when you look at Mayo compared to other first-year coaches, I do not have a great answer for you here going into week 13. Still without a bye week, but believe me, I've been thinking about it. That is an offseason project, and it's a really good one because, or maybe it's something that we'll get to even before the season ends, maybe week 17, 18, because I think there's a really, really good question. How has Mayo done relative to coaches in his circumstances as best you can compare, let's say, rookie quarterback, however you might measure roster talent or coming off of a certain record the year before? No question in my mind, Mayo has disappointed, in my opinion, in his performance and his comments and his messaging. But what you're asking for is how to quantify this. It's what I would say in the meantime, before that project gets done, late in the season or in the offseason. Here are the areas that you can quantify. Penalties, you already mentioned, that's number 1. Number 2, tackling. Patriots still good at tackling, but for defensive coaches, like that's the most fundamental part of the game. Can you get that right? Patriots have enough. 4th down aggressiveness, though, relative to the models. Okay, Chargers and Ravens are playing right now. The Ravens just went for it inside their own 25-yard line around the 2-minute warning. They got it because it was 1 yard. And they realized more often than not, you're going to get 3 feet if you want it in the NFL. Jerod Mayo doesn't get that. He is among the most conservative coaches on fourth down in a way that you should not be when you properly weigh the risk and reward. Okay. And you can take in all the factors and the weather and the opponent, yada, yada. Okay. People who don't like analytics, which is just such a broad term. Let's be specific. Probability models, okay, built on historical data in these situations, don't take into account. Some do, others don't. None are perfect. The bottom line is he's too conservative. And you can see that with the fourth down aggression. Number 4, how good is he at challenging plays? He's 0 for 2. He had the worst challenge of the season on Sunday. Okay, that's what it is. Small thing, but it counts. And then I would go to this first quarter scoring differential, because what that says is not only how good are your game plans, right? Are you mining an edge? And that's the job of a coach. What edges are you giving your team that an average coach couldn't do on their own? And it's your ability to have your team focused and motivated and ready to go. And we saw that's not been the case in a few games this season. Okay. And you don't need guys talking about going out in London or eating this and eating that to know it. You can see it. You can watch it. The energy level, how it picks up, the body language, how they are on the sideline, or first quarter scoring differential. And they've been starting, the Patriots have, much faster in offense than people have given them credit for. I wrote about it last week. Top 10 by EPA the last 6 weeks. Running and passing in the first quarter. It's great. Not anymore, actually, probably after Miami, but defensively, they've been slow. So how good is your staff at preparing the team? Patriots have been bad there. They've been bad with challenges. They've been bad on fourth down. Good at tackling, sucky at penalties. So, yeah, wherever that project ends up, if it gets done, Mayo does not look good. Kurt, cool. I'm not giving up on this season. That being said, I am starting to look ahead. Hey, man, do what you got to do at this point. Is it in the Patriots' best interest to sign a top free agent receiver, T. Higgins or Chris Godwin, and draft their next starting tackle? Drafting a receiver seems to be hard for them. Yes, you are correct, sir. What would your approach be? Kurt, I am not taking any option off the table. And you listed some free agents. You mentioned the draft. I'm going to make some calls about trades, and I'm not going to give you those names just yet because I have future episodes to do with this podcast, and I need stuff to talk about. But what I'm saying is they cannot come up with a plan and be so rigid that if part of the plan fails, they just kind of give up. Because to me, that has been their plan at offensive tackle, where they just throw numbers and a bunch of guys, and one of them will work out, and they don't. And even when they get hurt, it's not that they're hurt that's the problem. It's that even when they come back, they're not good enough to hold down the job. They need to have all options on the table. Signing Godwin, signing Higgins, still drafting a receiver, signing Ronnie Stanley, drafting another offensive tackle, trading for a receiver, whatever it might be. You need talent. You need talent at those positions. However you can do it, that's my approach, and have a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and go all the way to Z for all I care. Just get it done. No more excuses. You got the money. You got the draft resources. You got extra picks. Go get those players. Last one, and then travel tales, which is going to be, spoiler, low-key Miami as far as travel tales go. Yap. What has Mayo done to avoid being scrutinized more by the media? This team looks significantly worse year over year and has fallen off down the stretch as well. Why does the poor coaching get excused by a bad roster when they are not seemingly coaching anyone up, May excluded? So May excluded is the big one, right? Like, that's the highest pick of the draft. That's a guy playing the most important position. That's one of the best players in your team already. And I'm not saying your phrasing isn't correct, and that outside of May, it's probably Kayshon Boutte. Up until Sunday, you might say Vadarian Lowe. And our guy Doug tweeted a story about this and took a really good hard look at it. Lowe, by the way, last year was unplayable last year. So, like, at least that guy's on the field. And believe it or not, you guys were clamoring for him to come back when he was hurt. And I hoped he would come back. A, because you want a guy to be healthy, but B, he's still their best left tackle. Anyway, I do not at all agree with the premise that Mayo has avoided being scrutinized by the media. I have written at least 4 post-game columns. So game is over, go down, ask questions in the press conference, go in the locker room, ask more questions, and then explain to you how he got out-coached and why this wasn't good enough. Okay? So it's not me. And I'll say it again. There's no pride. There's no hair being put on your chest. There's no extra inch here or there, wherever you might want, by being negative. Being negative is not the point. Being fair is the goal. Okay? And yes, it's been bad. So I will be critical when I think it's appropriate. I'll give praise when I think so too. That's the job I have as the columnist in addition to reporting. So I would say if you're upset with the media for not giving enough scrutiny to Mayo, I would start being more specific about that because I just can't help you here. And it's not because I've grown tired of writing those columns. I've grown tired of a lot of stuff about this team. And I told you that. That was the lead of my last column. Going, can they just do better? They need to show progress. Uh, but it is a bad roster. It's not a great coaching staff. I think there will be changes to the coaching staff and more changes to the roster. So I don't know how well that answers your question. We made mention of a couple players who did get better, but they were left in a bad spot. They've been worse than we expected. And I have let you know how and why Mayo has failed several times already. So he's certainly not avoided it from me. Travel tales. Okay, like I said, pretty tame trip to Miami. I love going to Miami. I love to get in early, get a rental car, drive around the city, done South Beach, done Wynwood. Shout out Jay Wakefield, sister brewery of Vitamin C, which has gotten plenty of shout outs here. Go see Vitamin C in Plymouth. Go see them in Weymouth. Um, anyway, I enjoy going back to Miami. This, though, was a family trip. This was not going to South Beach. This was not going to a Marlins game. This wasn't anything. 4 a.m. wake up on Saturday. I got a 6 a.m. flight out of Logan. I got a rental. Instead of driving down towards the city, I drove to Miami Gardens, where the stadium is. It's about like 30 minutes north of Miami and 20 minutes southwest of Fort Lauderdale. And it's because I was going to see my cousin, who is a senior at the University of Miami, and they played their last home game against Wake Forest. So parked there, walked to meet him. Used to get that familiar pang of jealousy, which still happens on the road. Honestly, sometimes at Gillette, of just walking through, the tailgates and the crowd. I'm like, you all are just going to drink beer and you're going to eat burgers and you're going to have dogs. And I love my job. I wouldn't trade my job in for almost anything. I'm going to cover my 100th regular season or postseason Patriots game in person on Sunday, and it blows my freaking mind. But would I turn down a beer or a hot dog in the press box? No. So anyway, I get the same pang of like, oh, all these people are going to go watch this Miami Wake Forest game. And I'm going to get to drink. And wait a minute, I get to drink and hang out today. So I meet my cousin, a great kid, and I made a point to hang out with him the last few years when he's been in school because, that side of the family is one of these, like, you really just kind of see him like at funerals the last 10, 15 years. And they're in upstate New York. And anyway, we got good tickets. We're about 25 rows up from behind the Miami sideline. And the shaded side, by the way, you talk about home field advantage. That place is nothing to do with crowd noise. It's all about the fact that the way the roof is oriented and the sun shines through, it sets, not actually, but it heats up the away bench in a way that is completely different, like 5 to 10 degrees, sometimes more from the shade on the home bench. Anyway, so we're on the home bench, good tickets. Guy in front of us is just apoplectic with every mistake next to his sons or somehow high school, college. And you just are like, this is who you're probably going to be in 20 years. Anyway, never gets their arms around the game. They gave him an open-air drive touchdown to Wake Forest. It was not good. Can't throw. Kickoff return touchdown and some turnovers. So it's 20-14 early in the fourth quarter. But then they blow them out because that's what you do when you're just that much more talented. Elliot Wolf and Alonzo Highsmith were both there, by the way, courtesy of Mike Reese. So I think it tweeted out the next day. Both of them are Miami grads. Take my cousin a world of beer up in Miramar. Shout out. Flanagan's, which I'd never been to before. It is a local South Florida chain of technically seafood, but it's like one of those diner menus that we have everything. There's no way they're good at everything, but they're good enough. Tons of TVs, lots of drinks, lots of fun. Really cheap too, by the way. I had a prime rib for $21, which I will underscore what I just said. It's good enough. Okay. But like, you're not turning down prime rib for $21. I don't think anywhere that you might be. We then meet up with Doug, the Mass Live guys, Mark Daniels and Chris Mason at Topgolf. I booked this, a few weeks ago. My cousin puts one over the side of the net. Okay. None of us are pro golfers. So Mason absolutely clobbered the ball down the middle. And we're playing games, for like 2 hours. But that drew the biggest cheer of the night when he put one outside the net. Obviously, a huge shank, pull, whatever. I don't play golf regularly. So good fun. Drove back to campus, get back 11:30. I've been up for 20 hours. So we go to the game, cover it. Patriots lose. Doug and I briefly drive around Hard Rock Stadium afterward on the F1 track because, yes, we were lost. But we just felt like we deserved it after watching that game because it was a tough one. And I don't know anything about F1, but I will absolutely mention that story to all of my in-laws when I see them for Thanksgiving this weekend down in Connecticut. Then it was 9 a.m. flight back out of Lauderdale. And I've been doing film since then. So this podcast, as always, goes longer than I would have thought. If you are still hanging around, please let us know. God, it's been over an hour. Yeah, please give us a rating. 5 stars on Apple. That would be something I will be very thankful for. I might even tell my in-laws about it, as well as the F1 story. Spotify, Apple, we will always appreciate the feedback. You can email me, acallahan@bostonherald.com. This game was not good. I hope you enjoyed what we had here today. The Patriots get the Colts on Sunday. We are actually going to have a different week, too, by the time you hear this. Drake Maye is speaking Tuesday. Gerard Mayo is speaking Tuesday. Normally, those both happen on Wednesday. Patriots are practicing Tuesday and Wednesday. And then they're going to be off Thursday with the rest of us before coming back on Friday. So a little bit of a different schedule. They'll come back, kick off Sunday at 1, and then the bye week. So we'll see if they bounce back. Until then, I will have another episode. Not sure when. We'll have a guest. And I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving, wherever you might be. Be well.